watching Business Access TV.
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access.
You are watching Business Access TV.
Business Access TV.
Serious about business.
Serious about business.
How much do you know about the LPO industry? Well, today you are in luck. We are here at the Norman Manley Law School for JAMPRO's Legal Process Outsourcing Forum. I'm your host, Amita Prasadweb. Please stay tuned.
So this forum is designed to define and explain legal process outsourcing. What are the risks? What are the challenges? We're aware that India is often given as the model for legal process outsourcing. And some of the similarities with our jurisdiction is that we have a common law system. We have lawyers who are trained proficiently in English. We have a tradition of an independent judiciary. I think it's on display right now. We also have, and I'm sure former graduate would agree with me, freedom of the press. And therefore, we have all the groundwork for being very similar to being very successful with LPO. But there are challenges, and we need to know them. And so I'm sure that this forum today is going to identify those for you. We hope that it will be a market that in 10 years from now, Jamaica will be a major player, but that we've managed all the risks and we're not doing it at a low level, but we are actually ensuring that we're engaging in high-level skills.
Legal process outsourcing is simply the activity of retaining non-traditional service providers in the legal space to do certain kinds of legal work for companies and law firms in developed countries.
So I don't need to be a lawyer.
It depends on the work that you're doing. So, legal process outsourcing can involve work that doesn't necessarily require a lawyer, but generally speaking, lawyers are the ones delivering these services. Some countries have moved first on the opportunity to capitalize on some of this work now flowing out of places like North America and the UK. And those countries have certain things in common. They have a large number of English-speaking legal professionals. They have good IT infrastructure or ICT infrastructure. And they can deliver legal work, certain kinds of legal work, or in fact, a lot of the legal work we do for lower rates and at least comparable quality. The legal industry latched on to this LPO idea, and that's reflected in the value of the LPO industry. So in 2016, estimates vary, but reasonable estimates have the LPO industry in 2016 at $4 billion US. By 2024, estimates have the industry at 40 billion, around 40 billion US dollars. That's not just significant money, but it's even more significant growth over a very short time. Now, when I see these numbers, I think, how do we and how does Jamaica participate in this growth in a meaningful way? How do we get a sliver of that $40 billion that's up ahead? We don't need the entire 40, and in fact, we can't have the entire 40 billion. We need a sliver of that 40 billion. This is substantial business, and Jamaica is in a good position to participate in that in some way. We need to determine what that way is and how we do that. Currently, there are 6 key areas that are outsourced from North America and the UK. There's contract drafting, which involves playing a role in the process of how contracting is done by lawyers for their clients. So often you find, the contract, a draft is sent, it's negotiated, it's signed, but then everybody sets that down and it's forgotten. Nobody tracks the risks, nobody tracks the life cycle of that contract, whether they're staying outside the provisions or not. And that's become a key area for LPOs. LPO providers have gone to companies and said, well, let's take that off your hands. That's relatively low value but high risk work. And they handle, some LPOs handle end-to-end. They handle the negotiation of the contracts and management of the life cycle of the contract. Some will manage the life cycle of the contract after it's been negotiated by the company and their lawyers. There's compliance assistance, which is becoming more important these days. And that involves, for example, with the relatively new anti-money laundering regulations in these countries, there are new requirements on companies to be able to satisfy these compliance obligations. And again, high risk, but to the overall company, low value. And this, again, is one of the areas where LPOs are doing well at going to the companies and offering well-trained lawyers to take care of this piece of what the company has to do. E-discovery, which is where I started as it relates to LPO activities, is the biggest piece of the LPO market currently, and is one of the areas set to, as you will see later once we get to that section of the presentation, set to experience the biggest piece of the growth going forward. And e-discovery, for those who don't know, involves the disclosure and production of documents in litigation or in some regulatory context, like securities. And that's the whole process of collecting those documents, getting them into a format that lawyers can review, having lawyers review them, determining what is to be disclosed and what is to be produced, and then producing those documents to a regulator or to the other side of a litigation. In a nutshell, that's what that is. Again, high risk, but to the company overall, low value, but also high cost if you continue to do this in North America or the UK. Some LPOs are in the business of what they call managed review. So irrespective of what the review is, whether it's in the litigation context or regulatory context or otherwise, you have tons of documents to review. They will provide you with the project managers, the technology, and the processes by which you can accomplish what you need to accomplish with this review of documents. Patent support is another area where significant growth is expected over the next few years. And this goes anywhere from managing patent portfolios to the actual filing of patents, which has increased relatively significantly in North America in the last couple of years. Litigation support is really a sub piece of e-discovery. And that's some of the more technical, technology-driven pieces of the process where, the documents, for example, you go into a company, you collect their documents from their IT infrastructure. It would be really inefficient for a lawyer reviewing those documents to be opening each document, to be requiring the native application to open each of these documents. So PowerPoint, you have to open in PowerPoint and review. Then you have to open Word in Word. Litigation support offers the ability to convert those documents relatively quickly into a seamless format where a lawyer can review document by document and provide his or her input on those documents in a seamless way. But that's really a piece of the e-discovery process. So the US and Canada are generally outsourcers, but are also outsourcing locations because there are firms in the US and Canada where companies will outsource their work, their alternative legal services providers operating in those countries as onshore outsourcers. The UK in Europe is a big outsourcer, and again also has some onshore outsourcing happening. In Asia Pacific, India is the big one. Australia is coming on stream. China for very particular functions in the space. Brazil and Mexico, not quite there. But South Africa is one of the leading jurisdictions for LPO services. You have a company like Exigent, for example, that operates out of South Africa. And we'll talk about this again later, but all these outsourcers, one of the key success factors for them is having boots on the ground in the countries from which the work is being outsourced. I operate in the Canadian market, so I thought I'd use Canada as an example to show you the kind of growth that's expected for the LPO industry in each of these areas that we just talked about. And you'll see that e-discovery, patent support, and litigation support are by far the largest benefactors of the growth we'll see going forward. This information is there to plant the seed in your mind as to if you're thinking about getting into this space, where do you focus your energy? It makes sense to focus your energy on the areas where big growth is expected.
How much do you believe in the viability of the LPO sector here, and why?
I think it's a quite viable sector in Jamaica for a number of reasons. So first is Jamaica has a big supply of well-trained English-speaking lawyers who are able to deliver quality service for lower fees than companies or law firms can get in certain jurisdictions. Jamaica is also strategically located in the world. So we're right in the backyard of North America, for example, where we can almost seamlessly become a part of a legal team in that country, being on the same time zone, for example. We're close enough to the UK and have strong enough ties with the UK to be able to be an extension of a UK team as well. We have a common law legal infrastructure in Jamaica. There are legislation and laws in Jamaica that are modeled off laws from some of these countries as well. So it's not an unfamiliar place to do that kind of work or that kind of business.
A few of the challenges that were mentioned earlier in regards to location, time zone, scalability, and then privacy. Can you speak to some of that?
I'll take scalability first because I think that's one of the bigger limiting factors for Jamaica. If you compare Jamaica to India, for example, which is one of the main outsourcing locations in the world, the population is massive in India, and the number of well-trained lawyers you might get in India is a lot larger than it is in Jamaica. And Jamaica is restricted by the fact that we're not really that many people when you compare us to other places in the world. But what's interesting to note, though, is the impact that technology is having on some of the services that are outsourced is actually, I think, a positive for Jamaica. Because with the technology now, you need less people to be delivering these services. And so I think that puts Jamaica in even a stronger position going forward. The LPO industry is rapidly growing. I mean, estimates vary, but we're looking at growth between 2016 or 2017 from $4 billion US to $40 billion US. That's a massive compounded annual growth rate for that industry. And I think that shows us the kind of promise that's in that space for countries like Jamaica that's already doing very well in the general business process outsourcing space. It excites me particularly because it's a means by which Jamaica can add some sophistication to what we're able to deliver in terms of labor, in terms of work, and being able to insert Jamaicans into the international, the global value chain in the way that we can insert Jamaican lawyers in the value chain, I think is an exciting thing for Jamaica.
Speak to us about the LPO Forum today at the Norman Manley Law School.
All right, so we decided to have this LPO Forum because one of the things we're trying to do is start the LPO industry because it's one of the industries that's growing rapidly worldwide. And I believe there's a tremendous opportunity for Jamaica to carve out a niche in this space. As you know, we have already been successful in the business process outsourcing industry. In a number of industries, we are doing it in healthcare, we're doing it in tech support, we're doing it in finance and accounting, we're doing it in HR. So we've been very successful in that industry. And a lot of the characteristics that drive success in that industry are the same characteristics that can allow us to be successful in the LPO industry.
What would you say are some major challenges for a few of your attendees here today?
To wrap their mind around the changing construct of the way work is done and, the changing characteristics of the legal profession. If you think about it, because of globalization, a lot of professions are being disrupted. You'll talk to architects who'll tell you people are now downloading drawings from the internet and just customizing it for the country. If you look at the whole BPO industry, work is sliced up, and you have people being hired with no degrees, for example, and they are trained to be specialists in a particular area. So in Jamaica, for example, we have people with 5 CSEC subjects who are doing level 3 tech support in a telecoms environment. Why? Because you can train them and create expertise and excellence, service excellence in people in specific slices. So if you take the area of legal process outsourcing, similarly, there are areas that, whether it be intellectual property, patent registration, contract review. These are areas that you can have highly specialized skills doing work, here in Jamaica. So, I think what we have to wrap our heads around is we need to find the next entrepreneur in this space who will understand the opportunity, put in the hard work to develop it, because it's going to happen, and it's going to happen one of two ways. It's going to happen where either as Jamaicans we take advantage and create the businesses that are serving the world in the legal space, or other companies are going to discover this gem called Jamaica with the number of legal professionals and talent here and set up facilities, and we'll just be working in those facilities.
We're talking BPOs, LPOs now. What's next for JAMPRO and doing business in Jamaica?
Right. So, we're on a mission. So obviously the BPO industry is, and let me say outsourcing industry, because it's very broad. We're looking to grow that industry significantly. We expect, right now we're at about 32,000 people. We expect to get to about 50,000 in the next 2 years. And we're always looking to enhance the portfolio mix of work that's being done in the country. So like anything else, you're trying to increase the complexity of work being done, because the more complex the work, the higher the pay in the right. So we really have our eyes on two things in that space. So to grow the numbers and to enhance the mix of work being done, because similar if you think of what happened in the US, right, with outsourcing of manufacturing jobs. The thinking was, we'll outsource these low-end jobs and do the higher value design work. But I think what they forgot in that equation is that not everybody can be a rocket scientist. Right. So you need jobs at all levels. So no different in all outsourcing space, you're going to have jobs at all levels. And what we're always looking to do is enhance the mix of those jobs.
And by now you would have understood what LPO means. But stay tuned for more. We're going to a break.
Local law firms, I believe, can create capacity. It doesn't have to be an entire staffing agency. Local law firms can create capacity to train legal staff in the core skills needed in an outsourced project. It's not getting into the subject matter of the foreign law. And then the staffing agencies overseas who already have that capacity can simply identify a Jamaican law firm that has that potential and engage them directly. Or the overseas law firm can engage the entity in Jamaica directly. And then, this is the message now for the law students, is that you would associate yourself with a law firm or a staffing agency within a law firm, and you would receive information on upcoming legal outsourcing projects that you can apply for. So I would stay in my apartment while I'm studying for the bar and say, okay, I'm sending off my resume to these 20 persons, and then they would now keep in touch with me to say, okay, as soon as you set the bar, you can work on your pending status, and these are the projects. So I could pick, choose, and refuse, generally by the dollar figure, and the interest, because I was thinking also about building my career. So I selected projects in intellectual property, antitrust, and global projects, because I knew I was heading back to Jamaica. but I wanted to have this opportunity to be inside some of the most serious litigation and cases that even when I was back in Jamaica, I would say, oh yes, now it's finally, now they're in court. This is something I worked on 2, 3, 4 years in advance at the discovery stage. So I think what really we'll be looking at would be an LPO litigation manager, somebody who has schooled themselves in those different software that I mentioned before, and sort of had some sort of association with a particular jurisdiction, and is comfortable, whether you have a JD or you are trained in the UK, or you have been trained by someone who has been exposed to the ins and outs of that system, which is just a little bit more technical in terms of the expanded way e-discovery or the civil procedure rules are used upfront. We kind of just move into the litigation a little bit more, and then we ask for the list of documents, and if something is needed, then you'd make a request for information, but it's done a little earlier in first world countries. Staffing agencies. We have a lot of law students who are graduating, and of course you have the benefit of once you have your hard-earned certificate of legal education, you are ready to go. So you can now send your resume to this agency and be ready to take on projects. And paralegals. Paralegals also play a role in this. They don't need to have international certification, but what they need to be is familiar with those rules I spoke about, and it's generally relevance, privilege, that sort of a thing. I put there that the Jamaican Civil Procedure Rules, Part 28, is a great start for anyone, and also just to look online on YouTube to see how those e-discovery software would work. And lastly, as I wrap up, I know what's on everybody's mind, or the minds of many, is will it be worthwhile financially? I can tell you, in the US, it was worthwhile for me. And when I did a little research on how persons felt about the BPO sector, they were happy because it really has provided more jobs. But a lot of persons are concerned that will we be able to keep, as Jamaicans, a competitive rate? I believe there's a lot of space for the rate to be competitive in that it helps to cut the 20% that Marlon spoke about, because legal services in the US is pretty expensive. I believe that both sectors can benefit. I believe you can offer a competitive rate and it still be attractive to a graduate from the law school, and even someone who is 3, 4, 5 years at the bar and beyond. So when I did document review, the persons sitting with me were persons who just had their baby and they didn't want to be in a full-fledged, hardcore litigation practice where you'd really be coming home on the train 10 o'clock at night. They wanted a little bit more flexibility. So they're extremely qualified, but at a different place in their life. Some persons were looking to go into the banking sector as lawyers, and so they wanted to get on some kind of projects where they were seeing things go wrong in banking and how they could be fixed. They wanted that global perspective. And shortly after, a year or two, they would be off temporary projects, that's what it's called, temporary projects, and on to their full-time job. So there was no stigma attached to it, like, oh my gosh, you're doing temporary work, what's the problem? It was more a strategic part of your strategic plan after law school. And I would love for this opportunity to be here for all Jamaican law students who I know, many have spoken to me, and they're like, oh my God, I wish I'd started this 10 years ago because there's now so many lawyers. Will I be able to find a job? I believe this is a great opportunity for Jamaican law students to really be able to get a global perspective. Maybe you'll change your mind and do your master's somewhere else and get more foreign training or something like that. But it will give you, I believe it will energize the sector and give you a fresh perspective. So I hope I've been of assistance.
All right, so I must say this morning, I'm extremely happy. I'm very excited to be a part of change, a changing environment. An environment which will see the trajectory of the legal arena becoming completely different. And sometimes we resist change. We resist change because we think it is something that is difficult to do. We resist it because we have a lack of a belief system. We also resist change because we say to ourselves, I have been doing this thing this way, and I will continue to do it. And so I know that as attorneys, we tell ourselves we go to law school to get an education, and what we have got that education to do is to practice. And practice we will, but what we have in mind is a traditional way of doing business, a traditional way of doing the law. But I must say to you that change is something to be embraced. Barack Obama went on that agenda of change, and he became the president of the United States of America. So if you look within the context before I start, we need to address our minds to getting to a stage in our career that we want to embrace this change. Otherwise, whatever it is we are saying to you here today will be of no significance. Because whether we want to accept this or not, what really is this business of legal process outsourcing? We are using technology, we are using people, and we are using a process. So it's really a fusion of technology, people, and process. Gone are the days when a young lawyer left law school and you have to go and do some mundane stuff in a law firm. Gone are those days. Gone are the days when you get up in an office, even as a senior person, and you twiddle your thumbs because there's nothing to do or you do not have much business inside there. Gone are those days. I'm here to say to you that the legal process outsource industry has heralded a change, both for graduates and for senior lawyers, law firms. Law firms, I'm going to speak to you particularly at this point in time, because the fact that I was asked to speak based on the fact that I have set up a legal process outsourcing firm means, and where JAMPRO 2 is trying to head on this government, where they're trying to head is in fact for entities to establish legal process outsourcing centers apart from operating simply from your home, or you need to see it as a business in itself, in the same way that the BPO sector has really mushroomed, blossomed into a huge business. And I see that happening in Jamaica within a very short period of time. We are in a global space, and the reasons given for this business doing so well in India, in all of those other places, is simply because of the matter of globalization and people needing to get their work done elsewhere at a cheaper cost. The demand is also there because people are talking about efficiencies of scale. Where the LPO is concerned, people for some type of matters can give their matters to a firm overnight and have it in their hands the next morning because there's no time limit. We go to work at the law firm 8:30 in the morning and we finish at 5 or at 6 or at 7 if you're going overtime and all of that. This business has no time limit. Depending on the client you're working for, you may find that your operation is going 24/7. In Jamaica, we need to get there. We need to get there because if you look at our economy cannot be sustained on a system where services such as legal services are simply given within some long periods of time. Otherwise, entities are going to be missing the boat. The global market space is saying, we need it now. We need it yesterday, day before yesterday, and that is what the LPO service can do. With the development of the internet technology, what you find, a lot of things can happen at the same time. So in our law offices, we use regular windows and little things like that. When you get to the LPO, your cost is going to be defined by the amount of technology that you put in there, because this technology is going to be helping you to do a number of the things in a very fast manner, quickly, so that you can get them out of there. You have increased automation of legal functions. Again, technology is going to help you to do that. And of course, you have information security. So with that improvement in information security, what you have is that whole business where people were concerned because of lack of confidentiality and all of that, that is now gone through the window. So demand for this service gets greater because there's now a greater level of confidence. New technological tools is causing that. You have accessibility, of course, to outside talent. You have round-the-clock availability, as I've said, and the ability to cut back other operations. That is what companies are looking for. I am asked to ask the question, is this LPO opportunity perfect? It is not perfect, because to say it is perfect would be like my saying to you, I never lie. At some point in our lives, what happens? Those little white lies come, right? So for us to now say that the LPO thing is perfect is akin to that. Because, of course, we have some obstacles. We have lack of awareness. We have information security concerns. We have research and document review dominating the effective work. We have outsourcing requiring updates such as technology, mindset, and culture. So all of those things are barriers in the Jamaican market space to this business of legal process outsourcing. But I'm here to tell you that this opportunity is really real. It is real and that the investment is worth it. If you have law firms and other LPO providers earning up to it is estimated they earn up to $40 billion. It seems to me that since we don't want to go along the broke side, what we need to do is to align ourselves with some of those entities so that what happens? A little of the $40 billion will come down to us. True or false? Right. So guess what? I have chosen to do what? I don't want to go on the broke side, so I have chosen to align myself with entities that are along the path of going towards that $40 billion that they are talking about. I'm not there, but I'm saying I have started, right? And when you're doing a race, Usain Bolt, years ago when he was in Falmouth, from shared content Trelawney, what happened? Nobody even knew about him. He came to the stadium and he failed. Huh? But the first time he won a race, guess what? Everybody saw him, and now the whole world has seen him. I am very confident, I am very positive that the whole world will very shortly be seeing the Jamaican marketplace as an area within which to operate in the legal process outsource space. It is just a matter of time. And we as attorneys and practitioners and corporations, we have to get on that train. You are simply gonna have to train the persons to do it. Our culture does not operate in the way that an LPO service operates. And so the first thing you have to do to get on board is to train all the work that you get to do. People are coming from law school all over the world, even the same Norman Manley Law School, but they do things differently. What you want? Standardization of output. So you may get a bulk of work, volume of work, but the output must be standardized.
You're tuned in to JAMPRO's Legal Process Outsourcing Forum in association with Norman Manley Law School. Please stay tuned for more highlights.
Centennial Legis Solutions was born out of a talk I had with Ms. Diane Edwards from JAMPRO. And in fact, I had been researching on it for over 4 years before then. And when she said to me last January that this is something that JAMPRO is looking into trying to promote, I immediately jumped into it by February because I said, Diane had been talking about this thing. I've been researching this thing all along, and guess what? I'm happy I've gone down the road because it's good to jump in the forefront and be a pioneer in this business. And so I'm happy I've done it.
Speak to the growth of your business so far.
All right, when we started, we had a number of hiccups because we had company, connecting but not paying, simply because Jamaica was not known for LPO service. Still getting there. But then since then, what we have had is that we have had persons who now believe more in this business because of the push that JAMPRO has been giving it. And so I have on board local and international partners.
Would you encourage persons to get into the market?
Definitely. In fact, I am so happy that JAMPRO had and Norman Manley Law School had this seminar today, simply because no man is an island. No man stands alone. So what we have to do to get Jamaica to be known, just as what happened in the BPO sector, we simply have to get many, many players on board so that together we have strength in numbers and the world will be able to see us much better.
How can people with law degrees who are not necessarily attorneys be a part of the market? Speak to that, please.
Okay. The general rule is that non-attorneys cannot practice law. But within the LPO sector, some of what we do is not what would be considered the practice of law. And hence, we have some people who have degrees in law would be important. So hence we have areas that practicing lawyers would be required to do and areas that non-practicing lawyers would be able to do. So it's not as technical as they say it. What is more important is the technology behind it and the level of confidentiality that you can maintain, because that is what is important to the marketplace.
As someone with an LPO business, speak to profitability.
Well, profitability, I'm working towards it. I'm getting there because the investment is significant. But once you have contracts in place, I'm sure that we are going to be making it. The Jamaica landscape is about to change significantly because with the LPO services, what you're going to find, instead of the lower level value chain service that Jamaica gets, the LPO service offers significantly more income for Jamaica. And so I would really be delighted if many other players get on board, get this business moving in Jamaica. We are equally and even more so up to it than India in terms of our location, in terms of the language that we speak, and so on. So I just want to say I'm very happy where Jamaica is heading and the work that JAMPRO is doing, Norman Manley Law School. That's where I was trained. I'm very happy for the work that they have been doing and the fact that they have come on board with it as well.
So you attended today's forum. What are your thoughts?
It was a very interesting forum. I've been watching JAMPRO for quite a few years, and I am interested in finding out the success rates of all the entities that they support. A lot of energy goes into it, a lot of investment goes into it, and I think analysis of the ones that succeeded and the ones that failed would help them in their model in future endeavors. They have identified LPOs as a future market that we could enter and also do a lot for the country and the people, especially with worthwhile jobs. Because so often the children in schools are demotivated. They're in an environment which doesn't engender easy learning. They have problems which affect their whole studying, and yet we have so much talent and so much success. Therefore, they are quite a pool that we can call on, especially with good training. And what came out of the meeting today is, in the conversation, was that we need to change a culture so that they understand that going through school, it was a matter of scoring to pass exams, getting certificates, getting degrees. But now it's about creativity, innovation, credibility, reputation, and no mistakes. Because when you make a mistake, it's very hard to recover.
So we were approached by JAMPRO to look at legal process outsourcing. We obviously are the strategic player in the market in that we provide vocational training for attorneys at law after they have completed their undergraduate studies. And we also have a research publication education unit, which also provides training beyond our core training of practicing as attorneys at law. So this was obviously an opportunity that we could not miss.
What would you say was the benefit of this forum for attendees, I guess specifically the graduates of your law school?
There were a mixture of persons in the audience, younger graduates, older persons who have been out for some time, looking at opportunities to be LPO providers, and also our young graduates, or the employability of our graduates is something we are concerned with. And I think the panel was able to set out a know-how, some of the risks, some of the challenges, and to explain the market so that people could better understand it. So really it was an educational forum.
In regards to some challenges that were listed by your panels, it sounded like a lot of those can be worked out if lawyers partner with businessmen or entrepreneurs in order to get it off the ground. What are your thoughts on that?
That's clearly so, that we're talking about entrepreneurs, or whatever their sets of skills and competencies coming together to provide a space in the market. One of the challenges is scale, as was said, and so it's about people coming together and providing strategic partnerships to deliver the skills.
So now you're having a forum on LPOs. What's next for Norman Manley Law School?
The Norman Manley Law School is interested in providing the training. Many of us are trained abroad. I practiced in the UK for 10 years. We have a pool of people to pull on so that we can actually train attorneys in the kind of practices that will be required from the firms from the UK, the firms from the US. And so we provide the base training, pull in the talent from abroad. So we're looking at providing training so that our graduates can take up the opportunities.
Any location that provides LPO services to participate, so the sliver we talked about, the sliver of that $40 million that we talked about, thank you very much. How big that can be will be directly influenced by how much you can scale. Countries like India participate really substantially in that revenue in the market. And one of the big reasons is there are so many of them. And there are so many of the Indian population that are trained as lawyers. For Jamaica, what are we now? How big are we now? 2.7 million people. Of those, proportionately we're training a lot more lawyers than our market can absorb, but certainly not enough to power number 2 or number 3 LPO industry globally. That, however, is not a factor that's limiting enough to keep us out of the space. I say that because countries like Israel, most of the outsourcing Microsoft does is to Israel. That's as a result of a number of factors, including the fact that the guy who runs e-discovery at Microsoft is from Israel. But they do well not just with Microsoft, but with companies like Microsoft as well. And they are participating meaningfully in that revenue, $4 billion it is now, that the market is seeing. So all that to say, scale's an issue, but don't think it's an issue that should hinder our progress in the space. Rates may be an issue. If we think in US dollars, you can get services from India as low as $10 US an hour. I'll just let that soak for a second. It may be challenging for Jamaica to deliver those services at those kinds of rates. India is the outlier in that respect. So countries like South Africa or Australia also can't deliver services at those rates. So that, again, shouldn't be the reason we don't play a meaningful part in the process. On the issue of rates and cost, Velma talked about the technology. In my practice at my firm, there are certain pieces of what we do that we offer on alternative fee arrangements. So we are able to say to a client, for a fixed fee of X, you'll get the work done. You don't have to worry about the hourly billings or whether it's going to be higher or lower. X is your cost. And we're able to do that because of what we've done with the technology. So we've tossed technology at these pieces of the process that takes away the human input that's required. And so that fixed fee, the margins on that fixed fee becomes bigger and bigger and bigger as we perfect the technology, because we need less and less and less human time input in the process. So technology is a key piece of how Jamaica could think about how we compete with respect to the rates that can be offered in other places. The time zone issue, few people mentioned, I think that's actually neutral for Jamaica. Because the intention would be, I would think, to service both North America and the UK. We have strong enough ties with both of those jurisdictions to provide services to those jurisdictions successfully. For North America, we have a strength in terms of the time zone. If we're going to collaborate in the way that I know law firms there like to collaborate with their outsourced partners. For the UK, we have the advantage also of being up while they're asleep. Security and ethics was a big concern for a lot of North American and UK companies and law firms thinking about the outsourcing alternative. Security in the sense that you're sending your data overseas to these countries that have less rigid controls around data privacy and data security than your jurisdiction does. Many clients would kibosh the idea for that reason. As Velma mentioned, that's less of an issue now, given the way in which these operations can be structured, where the data actually sits in the host country, while the lawyers in the service delivery center can access that data over the internet. The ethics issue has traditionally been a big issue. Some clients are uncomfortable. We know that North American lawyers and UK lawyers are trained to behave to a certain ethical code. The regulations are similar in terms of professional regulations, and people trust that, and people are comfortable with that. Not so comfortable when you go to India, where there have been examples of not so ethical behavior around things. So you're a massive telecommunications company, and you need document review. It's a highly confidential case. You send that case to your LPO provider, people begin to take pictures of certain documents, people begin to record the contact information of a CEO or a head of marketing, because they know they're going to move to that place soon, and they want to be able to contact somebody to get a job. These are all things that have happened and have scared certain clients into not wanting to try the alternative, depending on where it is. But LPO providers have responded to that with things like access controls for areas in which people are working. People can't bring cell phones in. The databases they work in are locked down to read only. People can't print information from the documents they're reviewing. So where we stand today is that, at least in North America and certainly in the UK as well, the market is much more comfortable from a security and ethics perspective. So again, that shouldn't be a barrier that stops Jamaica from participating in the space.
Special thank you to JAMPRO in association with Norman Manley Law School for putting on an informative session. I hope you've enjoyed the coverage of the Legal Process Outsourcing Forum. I've been your host, Amita Prasadweb, and thank you for tuning in to Business Access TV, serious about business.